Solaria Academy wasn't a school. It was a monument to arrogance. From a distance, it looked like a diamond crown embedded into the summit of Aethelgard's highest peak, its towers rotating slowly to track the sun and maximize light absorption. But up close, to someone with the eyes of an ancient god like Elian, the place reeked of desperation and control. The white marble walls were etched with runes of containment, not protection. The air vibrated with a frequency so high it caused a constant ringing in the ears, designed to keep students in a state of artificial euphoria and subconscious obedience. Elian walked down the avenue of the Ascended, the main path toward the dorms. All around him, freshmen wandered with their mouths agape, marveling at the statues of past heroes that seemed to follow them with their eyes. He, however, noticed the micro cracks at the base of the statues and the fact that the divine light they emanated was nothing more than a cheap trick of alchemical bioluminescence. Unlighted to the left, bearers to the right, barked a prefect with a gold insignia on his chest. His voice was magically amplified, hitting the eardrums like a hammer. Elian broke away from the main crowd, while Yerrick and the other nobles were guided toward the Zenith Pavilion, a floating structure with hanging gardens and personal servants. Elian and a handful of other unfortunates were shoved toward a low building, hunkered down in the shadow of the main tower. They called it the basement, though the official sign read Logistics Support Residence. It was damp, smelling of mold and cold stone, and the windows were mere slits that barely let in any air. His room was a monastic cell, 2 iron cots, a splintered desk, and a wash basin that dripped with a maddening rhythm. His roommate was already there. He was a pudgy boy with a rodent-like face, unpacking a suitcase filled with scarves and medicine bottles. "Hi," the boy said, his voice trembling. "I'm Pip of House. Well, my father is a grain merchant. He bought my way in. They say I have latent resonance, but..." He trailed off as he saw Elian's expression. Elian said nothing. He simply tossed his meager belongings onto the empty cot and sat down, crossing his legs in a lotus position. "You're the one who killed the automaton, right?" Pip whispered, his eyes wide. "I heard. They say you cheated, that you used a forbidden artifact. They say a lot of things," Elian replied, closing his eyes. "The only thing that matters is that the automaton is broken and I am here. Right, of course? Hey, aren't you scared? They say the basement freshmen are the main targets for the third year's hazing. Last night, they say they hung someone by their ankles off the edge of the island." Elian opened one eye, gray and piercing. "Let them come. I'm hungry." Pip laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, and went back to his medicines. Elian returned to his meditation. He wasn't resting. He was scouting. He extended his sensory awareness, that invisible web of dark perception beyond the stone walls. He mapped the building, 300 hearts beating in the complex, most of them faint and anxious. But there were pockets of power. The professors in the central tower burned like bonfires. And beneath, far beneath the Academy's foundations, there was something else. A pulse. It wasn't light. It wasn't resonance. It was a dull, rhythmic, cold heartbeat. Interesting, Elian thought. They have something buried here. Something that doesn't want to be found. The first applied resonance theory class was a form of torture, but not the kind Elian enjoyed. The professor, a man named Valerius with a beard so perfectly trimmed it looked fake, spoke with the cadence of someone in love with his own voice. The classroom was an amphitheater with its roof open to the sky. "Light is order," Valerius declaimed, hovering a crystal sphere over his hand. "Chaos is the absence of structure. We, the wardens, impose structure upon reality." With a theatrical gesture, the sphere glowed and fired a laser beam that incinerated a straw mannequin across the room. The students cheered. Yerrick, sitting in the front row, nodded with a smug grin. "Mr. Vane," the professor said, pointing to Yerrick, "could you demonstrate a basic grade 1 projection for us?" Yerrick stood up, puffed out his chest, and extended his hand. His resonance was strong, admittedly. A blade of golden light formed on his forearm, buzzing like a chainsaw. He slashed the air, and the shockwave split a wooden block 10 feet away. "Excellent," Valerius applauded. Pure, concise, lethal. 10 points for House Vane. Then, the professor's eyes, cold and calculating, swept toward the back of the room where the unlighted sat. They settled on Elian, and we have with us an anomaly. Elian, no last name, I see on the roster. It is said you have a knack for physical destruction, but here we study magic, not butchery. Do you have an opinion on your cousin's demonstration? Elian, who had been sketching energy flow diagrams in a notebook, looked up. The entire amphitheater turned to face him. The silence was thick. It's inefficient, Elian said flatly. Gaps echoed through the room. Yerrick turned bright red. Inefficient, Professor Valerius repeated, raising an eyebrow. Explain yourself, cadet. Elian stood up. He wasn't afraid. To him, this was like explaining astrophysics to a child playing with mud. Recruit Yerrick wasted 40% of his energy on visual and auditory manifestation. The glow, the hum. That's energy escaping, not working. If he had compressed the resonance, eliminating the light and sound, the cut would have been invisible, silent, and capable of penetrating steel, not just wood. What you teach here is theater, not combat. Yerrick growled and stepped forward, the blade of light still active on his arm. You dare lecture me? Useless? Come down here and prove it if you're so smart. Enough, Valerius intervened, though there was a spark of interest in his eyes. Cadet Elian makes a valid theoretical point, though his lack of practical ability makes it a purely academic opinion. Sit down, Elian, and Yerrick, deactivate your weapon before you hurt yourself. Elian sat back down, ignoring the murderous glares from half the class. He knew he had painted a target on his back, but he didn't care. He needed them to underestimate him and hate him in equal measure. Hate made people sloppy. As he left class and entered the crowded hallways, he felt a heavy shove. It was one of Jarick's friends, a giant named Torg. Watch your mouth, sewer rat, Torg whispered. Tonight, behind the greenhouses, we're going to teach you a lesson in efficiency. Elian didn't even break his stride. Bring friends, he replied without looking back. You're going to need them. But he didn't go to the greenhouses that night. He had more important plans than brawling with hormonal teenagers. The silver-haired girl's warning still echoed in his mind. Things worse than monsters. He needed to find out what that heartbeat beneath the academy was. He waited until Pip started snoring, which happened exactly 5 minutes after lights out. Elian dressed in his black gear and slipped through the basement corridors. The guard relaxed here. No one cared if the help snuck out. His goal was the forbidden library, located in the sublevels of the North Tower. Elian moved like liquid shadow, exploiting the blind spots of the crystal surveillance cameras. He reached the North Tower door, which was sealed with a complex light glyph. To a normal mage, it would have been impenetrable without the correct resonance key. To Elian, it was a buffet. He placed his hand over the glyph. Instead of trying to crack the code, he simply began to drain the energy, keeping the spell active. He felt the sweet, sharp taste of solar magic dissolving into his skin. The glyph flickered, dimmed, and finally went out. The door opened with a soft click. He stepped inside. The air was much colder here. And there it was again, the heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. He descended a spiral staircase that seemed endless. The torches on the walls didn't burn with fire, but with a cold, bluish light that emitted no heat. Reaching the bottom, he found himself in a vast circular hall, filled with shelves that stretched up into the darkness of the ceiling. But there were no books. There were jars. Thousands of glass jars, lined up on infinite shelves. And inside each jar, floating in an amber liquid, were fragments. Elian leaned in closer to one. It looked like a piece of grayish flesh, pulsing faintly. He read the gold label on the shelf. Subject 45B, failed resonance extraction. Status, living. His eyes narrowed. He moved to the next. Subject 102, core corruption. Status, unstable. It's not a library, Elian whispered, feeling a mix of disgust and fascination. It's a larder. Correct, a soft voice said behind him. Elian spun on his heels, dropping into a combat stance in a fraction of a second. Perched on one of the high shelves, legs dangling nonchalantly, was the silver-haired girl. She wore the academy uniform, but modified. The skirt was shorter, her boots had metal soles, and she wore fingerless gloves. Her white eyes glowed in the dim light. I told you to be careful, devourer, but curiosity killed the cat. Or in your case, the dragon playing at being a lamb. Who are you? Elian asked, calculating the distance for a lethal strike. His instinct was screaming danger. This girl had no energy scent. She was like a hole in his sensory radar. They call me Nyx, she said, jumping to the floor without making a sound, as if gravity were merely a suggestion to her. And I'm the only reason the silent alarms haven't gone off yet. You just walked into the Ascension Lab. Genius. If the director finds you here, you won't be expelled. You'll be put in one of those jars. She walked toward him, circling him like a shark. What is this? Elian asked, gesturing to the jars. They're the failures, Nyx replied, her tone turning somber. The Academy is trying to create the perfect warrior. Someone capable of holding the power of the primal sun without burning up. But the human body is weak. So they experiment. They take promising students who mysteriously disappear, or the unlighted that no one claims, and they try to inject them with more power than they can handle. She stopped in front of a large jar containing a single, giant eye that stared frantically in every direction. The ones who explode, well, they pick up the pieces and keep them here. For study, Elian felt a wave of cold fury, not out of compassion for the victims, but because of the sheer vulgarity of the method. These humans were playing God, but they were nothing more than amateur butchers. And you? Elian asked, are you an experiment? Nyx smiled, and this time it didn't reach her eyes. I'm a success, Elian, or so they say, but I'm not here to tell you my life story. I'm here because I felt your dissonance in the arena. You have something they don't. You can negate the light, and that's useful to me. Useful? Elian scoffed. I don't serve anyone. You'll serve if you want to survive what's coming. Nyx pointed toward the back of the hall, where a massive metal door was sealed with glowing red-hot chains. That heartbeat you hear is not coming from the jars. It's coming from behind that. It's the lab's power source, and it's very, very hungry, just like you. Before Elian could respond, the sound of heavy boots echoed down the spiral staircase. Bright lights began to descend. Crap, Nyx hissed. The midnight rounds. Professor Valerius. And he's not alone. He's brought the purifiers. She looked at Elian. You've got two choices, devourer. You try to fight and end up in a jar, or you trust me and we jump. Jump where? Elian asked, looking around. There was no exit. Nyx pointed to a ventilation grate in the floor, barely 2 feet wide, for which a toxic green vapor was rising. Into the waste system. It smells like hell, but it leads straight to the outer cliffs. The footsteps were almost at the bottom. Voices could be heard. I'm detecting a level 4 intrusion. Ready the neutralizers. Elian looked at the sealed door at the back, feeling the pull of the abyss behind it, and then at the disgusting grate. I hate this body, he growled. Make up your mind, Nyx said, kicking the grate and ripping it clean off. Elian didn't hesitate any longer. He dove into the dark hole, just as a beam of incinerating light hit the spot where he had been standing a second before. Nyx jumped in right after him. The fall was a nightmare slide through slick, dark pipes, slamming against rusted metal walls. Finally, they were spat out into the void. Elian tumbled into the cold night air, the wind whipping against his face. Below him was nothing but clouds, and, miles further down, the dark ocean of the lower world. He managed to grab onto a thick root jutting out from the base of the floating island, the impact nearly dislocating his shoulder. He dangled over nothingness. Nyx landed with feline grace on a nearby ledge. Welcome to the Rebels Club, Elian, she said, looking up as searchlights swept across the cliffside. Now you're not just some weird student anymore. Now you're a fugitive in your own school. Elian hauled himself up, climbing onto the ledge beside her. He brushed the grime off his clothes. I'm not a fugitive, he said, looking at the towering structure of the academy above them, which now looked more like a prison than a castle. I'm a spy, and I just found my enemy's weakness. Oh yeah. Nyx arched an eyebrow. And what's that? Their greed. Elian said, his eyes glowing in the dark. They want to create a god. Fine, I'll show them what happens when a true god answers the call. But then, a sharp pain shot through his head. A voice, not Nyx's but a deep, ancient and guttural one, echoed directly in his skull, coming from the thing locked inside the lab. Brother, Elian froze. The blood turned to ice in his veins. That voice, he knew it. It didn't belong to this world. It belonged to the void. Free me, and we shall devour the stars together. Elian looked at Nyx, but she didn't seem to have heard it. He stared at the rock face, toward the secret chamber far above them. It's not possible, Elian whispered, with a terror he hadn't felt since his death. Vorgr wasn't the only one. One of his generals, one of the dreadlords who served under him in his past life, was in there, chained up, being milked like a cow to feed these humans magic. The rage that surged within Elian was so violent that the rock beneath his hands began to crack and turn black. I will kill them all, he said, his voice vibrating with a demonic distortion. Not just for what they did to me, but for what they have done to him. Nyx took a step back, watching as Elian's shadow lengthened and twisted, taking the shape of broken wings and talons. Elian, she asked, sounding uncertain for the first time. Recess is over. Nyx, he said, turning toward her. His eyes were no longer gray. They were two pits of absolute darkness. We're going to start a civil war.